Great. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jen McCann. JP asked me to sort of give a little welcome and sort of be a timekeeper. So you all know why you're here. JP Walsh, our director for the Coastal Resources Center, is going to talk a little bit about who we are now at CRC, what we do, and ways that maybe we could broaden our collaborations with all of you. I'm going to pass it right over to Paula, our new Dean, Dean Bontempi, to give us a little intro, and then JP's just going to start. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jen, for the introduction, and JP, thank you for making the time to do this today. I welcome everybody. I'm so glad we have participation that is continually growing. Back in September, when I started, JP came to me and said, you know, my CRC director position 3-year cycle is up, and I don't know how we go about a renewal. And I said, that's funny, I don't either. So I made a few phone calls, and it turns out that it's really up to us how we want to go about this. So one of the things I thought in discussion with JP that we thought actually would be useful for everyone is to open up sort of a maybe 60 to 90 minute period, as we've done this morning, and allow JP to come in to talk a little bit about what CRC, or the Coastal Resources Center, has accomplished in the last 3 years under his tenure, some of what they're thinking about for the future, and some of the strategic planning that they're thinking of undertaking and working on. So I hope that this overview he's going to provide will give you a little bit of oversight on some of their active projects, and maybe get you all thinking about some avenues for potential collaboration or new research that GSO itself, and in concert with other parts of the university, could undertake. CRC has a very deep partnership with CELS and some other aspects. So I'm really pleased to introduce JP Walsh. JP comes to us in 2018. He is got a background in coastal processes and natural geophysical hazards. He's done some research in estuarine, coastal, delta, and marsh dynamics, something near and dear to my heart. And of course, in continental margin morphology and sedimentation. And I just have to embarrass him now. He has his BA from Colgate in 1995. Stony Brook, he had a master's in marine science in 1997, and his PhD is from the University of Washington in 2001. He did a postdoc at Scripps just after for a few years. I'm really pleased to have him here. I'm really pleased to have him give an overview of CRC, something, an aspect and affiliation with GSO that I think does an incredible job of bridging ocean exploration, discovery, research, decision support, and economics. So with that, JP, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for taking the time to put this together. And I turn it over to you. And afterwards, Jen McCann will kindly moderate the Q&A. So make sure you put any questions or anything you think of in the chat. She'll be watching along. Thank you for that, Jen.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the great introduction. Let me just get my slides up for you all. Hopefully you can see that all right. So it's, yes, good? Everybody good? Good.
Yeah,
perfect.
We can see it.
Thank you. So it's my pleasure to talk about the great work of the Coastal Resources Center. And, you know, some of you have a varied amount of background on CRC. So I'm really going to kind of go over some the nuts and bolts of what we do, and then get into some project examples, looking at sort of the recent past, the current, and then thinking a little bit about the future. I always like to begin with thanks, just so that I don't miss this slide. It's probably the most important. First, I want to thank the CRC team near and far. We, as you'll hear, have a tremendous team. I also want to thank Dean Bontempi, of course, for give me this opportunity and her support, and Bruce Corliss, Dean Corliss. He helped mentor me during my time, and it's been, you know, I really have much to thank him for. of course, many colleagues at GSO and at URI and staff are tremendous. We have are lucky to have a lot of partners around the world, NGOs, local, state, federal entities. We work with super students, many stakeholders, and are really blessed to have support from a number of different entities. Specifically, I want to actually take a second and say thanks to one of our champions. Dennis Nixon, as you know, is retiring. He's been at the helm of Sea Grant for a number of years, well before I got here. And I just wanted to say thanks to him. We've had a great partnership with Sea Grant, and I look forward to that continuing. I love this picture because he's at the helm of the Corwith Kramer, which is the ship that really got me into oceanography as a student with the Sea Education Association. So thank you, Dennis. So as you all know, there's a lot of reasons why we care about the coast. We have communities, of course, lining the shorelines, property, recreation, and resources. We often hear statistics like 40% of the world's population lives within 100 kilometers of the coast. And at the end of the talk, I'm going to circle back to some of these statistics to sort of explore and think about our future and what we do at CRC. As we all know, the coastlines are crowded and are at risk because of storms and sea level rise. Seafood is scarce in many places and shifting in response to climate change and global warming. The CRC, as you'll hear, is working with communities and citizens, and of course, the broader community to find science-based solutions to these problems. And it's a really tough task, of course. So what is CRC? Well, many of you may be familiar kind of just in a brief way with us. And so I'll be getting into that more. But really what we aim to be is a trusted source of knowledge and information. And we bring people together to discuss the challenges. We have about 25 technical staff, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And we're active globally and locally. The portfolio of CRC is broad. We like to kind of simplify it into three broad areas: sustainable seafood, capable communities, and healthy habitats. And I'll be giving examples of those through the presentation. Probably two of the areas where we're best known are for example, the Ocean SAMP process, the Ocean Special Area Management Plan, led by Jen McCann, which focused on planning for offshore wind. And I'll discuss that a little bit more coming up. And another area of emphasis is on overfishing and the challenges that developing countries in particular are faced with. So I wanted to give a little bit of CRC sort of by the numbers, and I want to thank Jane Miner for updating a couple of graphs here. This is a graph that from Bruce used to provide the state of GSO and provided a couple graphs on CRC, or that included us. Shown here is time and the award dollars, excluding the dollars from CRC. And what you can see is that the CRC awards are on the order of $10 million a year. And that's a testimony to the tremendous work of the many staff. I think what is also nice about this is that it shows that it's pretty stable number. And then if anything, it's been slightly increasing in recent years. And that's, of course, what we hope to see. For those of you, you all know that we're in the Graduate School of Oceanography, and we're happy to have that home. Shown here is just to put CRC in perspective. GSO has got obviously a lot of productive faculty, Sea Grant and the Endeavor, and shown here are awards with time, with CRC highlighted in green. As you can see that we are a significant component of the GSO funding, and I think that again is a testimony to the hard work and also to the importance of what we're doing, which I'll speak to. So many of you have heard about some of our big dollar awards, but I want to emphasize that we're more than some of those big projects. And really, we have a very complex, broad, diverse portfolio. I'm not going to go over all 35, or it's actually more than that, projects, but this is just a list. And you can see some of the titles here. They include fisheries, resilience, and so much more. Seaweed, biodiversity. So we are really trying to attack many different issues, some in very directed projects and others in more multifaceted ways. The lighter colored ones are those more focused on the domestic side, and then the sort of blue highlighted ones are the international. And that's important to note, is that we have work happening locally and internationally, and I'll be talking about that. So who is CRC? That's one thing that many of you may not be very familiar with the broader CRC community. And first, I want to take a second and thank Jennifer Critcher, who is the assistant director, and she's a rock star at CRC because she's so on top of it. As you can imagine, this portfolio is really complex, and she does a great job working with everyone to keep us on top of things. We have kind of two sides. We have the international program, which is led by Elin Terrell, and a lot of great staff. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of our expertise in a second. And then on the US side, led by Jen McCann, who made the introduction, again, with a nice diverse group of staff members. And as you'll notice in each of the areas, well, actually, let me first say that in the middle there, we have the finance, admin, and IT group. And I'm sorry I'm not reading off everybody's name. Everybody in this image is tremendously important, but just in the interest of time, I won't go through everyone. But as you can imagine, managing what I'll be describing requires a huge team and a professional one. And so we have a tremendous finance, admin, IT staff that makes this all happen. And many of us you might not recognize, but we do work with students. That's not really our primary charge. In many cases, we're really trying to bring science to the world, but that we do recognize that we're part of the university, and that's what we really do like to do, is offer those opportunities and connect to URI broadly. So we do have students both doing directed research as well as helping through day-to-day activities and so on. So even though we have the two teams, international and programmatic, and it is helpful to have, because they are different in terms of the types of projects and the emphasis, but I really want to make it clear that there is a strong exchange. Maybe not every day, but we do have people that work across teams. Of course, we share knowledge, ideas, resources, and certainly skills as one team needs help for one thing or another. So this exchange is important and is regularly occurs. I also wanted to mention that CRC is broader than just who's at GSO. And shown here is the names of some of our contract project personnel. These are those individuals that we actually are contracting to kind of help run the efforts in specific countries where we're working. I'm not going to read through the names, but this just gives you sort of a flavor of the types of individuals and where they are. I'm going to get a little bit more into our expertise and our international offices as well in a second. So what I first want to do is highlight the expertise that we have in the CRC. And what you can see from this image is a list of different areas: social science and policy, fisheries, spatial planning and management, coastal resilience, community and capacity development and geoscience. And I've listed a number of individuals next to each. It's really important that we maintain and that we have this strong, broad expertise, because our projects do pull on different aspects. And I do, even though GSO historically has not been focused on social science, of course, when in our projects where we're trying to impact and affect the world, social science and policy is really critical in measuring humanity and really designing programs that are going to impact behavior and cause change in society. Fisheries, of course, is woven into many projects, as well as marine spatial planning and resilience. And particularly, not just in our international projects, but also locally, capacity and community development is really important. Certainly in developing countries where there's maybe limited resources or skills, that's an area that's obvious of need, but also locally with communities. And I think that's highlighted by some of the great work that Teresa and Pam and Glenn and others have been doing, working with communities to understand their vulnerabilities and their challenges and where they need to sort of put emphasis for dealing with things like climate change. So I want to just take a second and also highlight some of our offices around the world, because many of you might not realize how broad we are. We do have a significant office in Manila. You can just see right here, this is the support admin team in their office. It's a larger suite with a number of folks. The lower image is a number of individuals, both as part of the Fishery project, which I'll be talking about second, as well as a partner organization, the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. We do have offices also in Coron, Iloilo, and Dumaguete. Dumaguete is the home of Silliman University, and President Dooley has come to the Philippines on a couple trips and has really taken an opportunity to explore international relationships. During one trip, we signed a memorandum of understanding with Silliman University, and that's the president of Silliman. For a long time, we've been working in Ghana, and shown here are a number of images from partners and different places around Ghana. So on the left-hand side, we have a couple partner organizations that we've worked with for a long time, SWIFIA and the Development Action Association. I don't have a picture from the office in Accra, but the project's sort of in a wind down phase, but we did have a very large office that was always buzzing with activity. We had multiple vehicles. You can see this one that's got the URI logo. So it's pretty nice when you get to Accra and you get picked up by a URI vehicle, you feel nice and at home. As part of the USDA project, we have a partnership at KNUST in Kumasi. And then we also work, we have another office in Accra as part of the ASSESS program. So again, there's a lot that is that CRC is in Ghana, and we've had a strong role in West Africa. Also in Africa, we are part of a project that I'll be talking about a little bit in Madagascar. In the top left image, you can see a couple of our CRC team members that I mentioned, Tina and Niaina, and that's Sarah Gaines in the middle. We are part of a larger project led by an organization called PACT, and that's a USAID effort, which I'll talk a little bit more in a second. Also in the recent past, we do have the Senegal project, which has ended, but you can see our office and the team there. I did have a chance to visit there a couple of years ago and really enjoyed that. So now I'm going to transition and talk a little bit about some projects in the recent past. And I want to emphasize, I'm really just trying to take a snippet of some different projects to expose you to the diversity of efforts. And I'm going to start with a really important one, which people often refer to as the Beach SAMP, or Special Area Management Plan. And I really want to highlight Teresa Green, who worked especially hard, but in partnership with so many CRMC, as you can see the logos at the bottom, of course, Sea Grant, This was an effort. We're fortunate to be in Rhode Island, which is a state that's being progressive and thinking about the challenge of our coast and how we need to manage it. And Rhode Island has these tools called SAMPs, and this was one focused on the shoreline, how it's changing, and some of the risks associated with it. We worked with a number of partners in engineering and, of course, GSO and cells to look at the risk of the coast and develop tools. Shown here in the middle is Storm Tools, which is a wonderful tool for basically looking at the risk to sea level rise, storms, and erosion. The beach SAMP was eventually approved in 2018, but I wanted to mention a couple key aspects of it. First, what's progressive is that not only did the plan highlight sort of some of the challenges that we have in our state, but also it actually put some teeth and created a new permitting process to basically require people to review their hazards prior to getting a permit approved. And of course, the way they can do that is they can use Storm Tools. In fact, there's a new suite of sort of packaged together of tools, sort of a Storm Tools new and improved that is something that they can use to identify all those risks. And of course, there's design elevation risk maps. Another area of work in the recent past was something called the Shellfish Initiative. In fact, this wasn't really a major funded initiative, but it was important because it was a follow-on from a major effort. There was, in 2014, we led the development of the Rhode Island Shellfish Management Plan. And in that process, several things were identified as how we need to advance aquaculture and seafood in the state of Rhode Island. And what the Shellfish Initiative was really to try and keep that going, to really start implementing some of those critical steps. And I think it's just a testimony to how committed we are to seeing our projects continue. That the Shellfish Initiative, there were many aspects to it. Implementing, there was in-person farm worker trainings that were developed, a range of marketing and public engagement, including videos, stories, clam digging classes and tours. You can go online and learn how to shuck an oyster. There's all kinds of aspects and information available now as a result of the Shellfish Initiative, which clearly was a big partnership with so many entities. So now I want to talk a little bit about some work in the recent past by the Sustainable Fisheries Management Project. This was a really large project funded by USAID, part of the Feed the Future effort. And really it was focused on rebuilding Ghana's fisheries, but it was more than that. And there's been tremendous success in the FMP project. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have time to go over all of it. If you want to learn any more, I really encourage you to talk to Brian Crawford or Don Robidoux, or Karen Kent, champions for the work. But one of the areas, many of these USAID projects have social programs kind of woven into them, in addition to science and policy. And one area of emphasis was anti-child labor and trafficking efforts, because these coastal communities are places where children are being sold in essence into servitude for the industry. So there was good progress on effort on CLAT, as it's referred to. There's also programs, of course, in addition to worrying about managing fisheries, we also think about how we can increase revenue through sales. And so we work on post-harvest value. How do we increase that? And some of that was through training on hygienic fish processing. The project actually created a couple centers for training on fish processing, and actually I had the incredible privilege during my first trip to Africa to be on the stage as a new center, really a really impressive building, a complex for educating folks on fish handling. I was sort of kind of got the representative for the United States, and people were there was a huge celebration, and it was a real honor to just be present. And I wish I could share that emotion with all of you. I'd say the biggest sort of landmark accomplishment in the SFMP project is bringing science coordination with between the fishers and the Ministry of Fisheries. That's really critical because in the past, when they've created policies, they weren't followed. And so really what CRC does is we try and work in a bottom-up approach to work with the fishing community, to have them explain and understand the problem, and then to communicate that in a really massive way to help the Ministry of Fisheries kind of put policies in place that are going to be effective. And this led to the first ever closure for the artisanal small pelagic fishery in Ghana in 2019. That went on a hiatus for 2020, but all right, what was incredible was the participation. They had sort of nearly complete following of the closure, meaning canoes did not go to sea to go fishing. And that was one step to really work towards recovery. Another area of work was the working with women oyster harvesters, because oyster harvesting really historically hasn't been recognized as a fishery in Ghana, but it is an important one, and it's unfortunately a declining resource because of loss of mangroves, as well as water quality and just overuse of the resource. Shown here is just a little bit of data. I know I'm not showing a lot of data in this presentation, but you can see through engaging the women fishers, we were able to demonstrate how it was taking more time to collect lesser yields from the fishery. And so by working with the community, not only did they recognize the problem that the resource is declining, but also they could develop a plan to manage and control the fishery. So basically, the project worked with some great partners on a whole host of activities. But probably the most significant one is that they were able to have exclusive use rights if they developed by getting this approved fisheries management plan. So by creating conservation and a management plan and really understanding the resource, they are able to protect it and hopefully grow it. And so they have taken actions to implement their own closure to allow oysters to grow over time. They've also led mangrove planting efforts to grow the environmental conditions to allow more opportunity for food ultimately. Another project that I want to highlight, which ended after 7 years, but it was a really tremendous effort in Senegal. And this picture is kind of one of my, highlight memories that I have from experiencing one of our international programs. This was a celebration in a community. In Senegal, they were really moving towards, of course, strengthening capacity and planning, training individuals for fisheries, in sustainable fisheries. But one of the big efforts was creating these local communities for managing their fisheries. And this was a meeting of one. Women in particular are a critical part because the women are usually the ones selling the seafood in Senegal. And that's also true in Ghana and in many other places. But we often have worked closely with women to empower them on giving them skills, and also to recognize their importance in sort of enforcing policy and developing and enforcing policy. And anyway, this was a great celebration of one of the community that I visited. I visited several, and they were all incredible experiences. We also worked at higher levels. Many of you know that illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing is a big problem, certainly in Africa, but around the world. And there was a really great study tour that brought the Minister of Fisheries from Senegal, as well as representatives from the Navy and across management to the United States to meet with our DEM, or the Coast Guard, the Navy. They visited Rhode Island and DC. And it was a really fabulous tour. And the Ministry of Fisheries, wrote us a follow-on message to really recognize that. And in particular, I want to acknowledge Naji Lazar for his great leadership on putting that together. Okay, so now I'm going to transition, talk about some current work. And again, I know I'm covering a lot here, but I really there's a lot to go over. So hopefully you're following on okay at home. First, the first thing I really feel like the most, sort of one of the critical things I want to talk about is the blue economy. This is a great opportunity for Rhode Island and URI and GSO. And I want to thank Jen McCann, who led this effort, and Bruce, who helped encourage through some support from state funding on getting this study done. So basically, over the last year or two, some work was done to look at sort of the economic data that's out there. Jen and others at CRC interviewed more than 60 leaders in the blue economy, and also Don Robidoux and Dawn Kodovitz conducted a network analysis. And this is all in the blue economy report that's available on the GSO website. It's packed with facts and figures and stories, and I don't have time to go into all that. But the one place where I think I will highlight is some of the basic numbers, just because it speaks a lot to the size of, we're the ocean state, and we do have a big blue economy, and it's diverse, and it's something that we really need to be actively working to grow. So as you can see, the defense, marine trades, of course, tourism, fisheries, aquaculture, there's many aspects that contribute to our blue economy. We're looking at a multi-billion-dollar industry, and this is a conservative estimate. As I always tried to push Jen to, come on, it's certainly more than that, but she was really good about putting out that conservative number. On jobs, you can see we have over 36,000 in the blue economy that I'm sure has taken a bit of a hit during the COVID crisis, but I think the point is that it's a really strong area and it's growing. And I think we really need to keep Rhode Island thinking blue. Of course, our state depends on it. This is a great way to grow jobs and revenue in our state. And I think there are real opportunities to better connect GSO and of course, ocean engineering and broadly URI with blue tech and many other industries in the blue economy. So, Jen she's a super networker. And I know she's been really working hard to try and work with, for example, the defense industry and others to explore opportunities for connecting to GSO, and that's something, and URI and ocean energy. So there's so many ways in which we can grow this, and I know over the next year we'll be hearing more. Another area of emphasis is this new challenge of offshore wind. As we all know, there's plans for the installation of thousands of turbines along the Atlantic margin of the United States. This is exciting, but it does mean some potential conflicts, and we've heard about those, and CRC has hosted forums for discussion on those, and has worked directly with the fishing community and many others on thinking about those conflicts. There's a great website. Again, Jen has been spearheading an effort to bring, working with people, for example, John King, Reza Hashemi, Chris Baxter, David Bidwell, Tracy Dalton, people around URI to come together and to showcase the expertise that we have, and to hopefully help in different aspects, whether it's technology development or understanding or communicating the challenges, I think there's really room for growth in along with the industry. Another project that we currently have funded is one focused on multi-use. This is a Belmont Forum project that I'm a PI on, along with Jen and Peter Freeman. And what we're looking to explore in partnership with European colleagues and African colleagues is how we need to be thinking about multi-use of the ocean. Rather than reserving it for one use, we should think about deliberately having shared use of the ocean and have synergistic benefits from that shared use. And that's something that you'll be hearing more about in the coming years as we use our ocean more and more. I don't have time to talk about the complete portfolio on resilience, but it is tremendous. And Pam Rubinoff and Teresa Crean in particular are great champions. We are engaging, following on from the Shoreline SAMP and other relationships that we've built over a long period of time. We're directly engaging municipalities, businesses, and more around Rhode Island, and really broadly beyond Rhode Island. But in particular, looking at how do we apply some of the tools that are developed to allow these entities to understand their risk and what they can do about it. So we've developed informational material. We are working directly with communities to think about what projects and how they could potentially finance those. And of course, we also are feeding this back into the educational system at URI. Teresa Crean has been leading a capstone studio called the Integrated Coastal Resilience Capstone Studio involving ocean energy, marine affairs, economics, landscape architecture. And this is sort of a senior program where these students are coming together to tackle a new challenge every year related to resilience. Last year focused on the Watch Hill community and directly look at engineering and economic aspects of resilience. And it's really great. They directly engage in their final presentations, members of the community. And, it's really impressive to see these students getting a real world glimpse into some of these challenges. Another area of emphasis right now is advancing aquaculture and seafood. So building on the Shellfish initiative and the Shellfish Management Plan. In 2019, there was an aquaculture situation and outlook report completed by the CRC team. We're continuing on communications efforts and classes, of course, in partnership with Sea Grant and many others. We're happy that we have a new NOAA project on online education and workforce development specifically for shellfish aquaculture. And another area of emphasis that Dawn Kodowitz and others is looking at new markets, for example, for kelp. And not only do we need to grow markets to sell and have a productive economy for our seafood, that takes work in marketing. And so we do work on both those aspects of where are markets available and how do we reach them. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some of the current work internationally, and I'll start with the Fish Right program, which is another huge program that is focused on sustainable fisheries and resilient communities, and you can see the partners there at the bottom. The project, like the one in Ghana, is focused on sustainable use, building resilience, and strengthening communities. And the work is really directed in 3 areas that are indicated. The overall goals are twofold: increase fish biomass and reduce threats. But while we have those 2 broad goals, it's really complicated to get to them. And I wanted to share with you quickly what one of these USAID projects looks like, because you hear about these big awards that we get. And I really have been so impressed and amazed at how intense the planning is for these projects. And I know you can't read this figure, but what I want you to see is that the number of there is text, and these arrows do mean something. What they do is they represent, on the right-hand side are the major goals for the project. And then through the images are different areas in which the project is looking to impact the world to eventually lead to these two outcomes. And that is a quick explanation. Here are some little cheat sheet guide for this complex diagram. The two goals are at the edge, and here are different ways in which policy, capacity, and so on, we can ultimately, for example, by creating better habitat, by enhancing community capacity to communicate. There's so many ways in which we can impact the broader societal system to then lead to these outcomes. So that's what these projects do. Glenn Ritchie and Elin Terrell are the PIs, and we, again, have a really tremendous in-country team. Of course, they're on the other side of the world, so it's funny. Last night when I was working late on my presentation, I'm getting emails from Fishright because they're up when we're not. But some of this project is right in the middle, and some of the work that's happening right now is really prepping for governance success and market success. And I'm not going to go over all the different examples, but we are working on community levels to create local action to eventually help lead to ecosystem approach to fisheries management and better improved management of large areas of the coast. We also are working of course, with governments. The BFAR is this organization that manages fisheries and aquatic resources. They have developed these new fisheries management areas, and we're working with them on communicating that and implementing those areas. And then we also are working with the private sector and building partnerships to academia and beyond to think about how the private sector can drive change in this seafood and coastal community. One of the things that I've been really impressed by in Fishright is the in-country team and their tech savviness. They have held some really incredible events. This one that was held back in May with Dr. Angel Alcala, who's sort of a legend in Philippines for marine science and conservation, and a young upcoming scientist, Renee Abasamis. They held this event, and thousands of people were attending in person and online, and they've had a series of really engaging events using Zoom and Facebook and other platforms. Really impressive to see and frankly learn from. So we also have, as I mentioned, a big project that we're a part of in Madagascar. It's known as the Haitao or Know-How Project in Malagasy. This project is focused in two areas of Madagascar, on the west coast of an area called Mena Bay and a region in the northeast coast. Most of our work is focused in Mena Bay at the time at present. And like the other USAID projects, conservation is a big emphasis, as well as livelihoods and strengthening communities. The work in Madagascar, this project is also about midway in a 5-year project. And this effort in the project, we're really working at all levels. We are working directly at the national level, and some recent successes has been the creation of a guide for developing fisheries management plans that will be created and implemented at the local level. So we've looked around the country and developed best practices and put them into a nice guide, and that's what you can see here. This is a recent event where the media was invited to share this new guide and to talk about its importance. We're also working on a fisheries management plan. One event that I got to participate in 2019 was this a summit on mangroves. Mangroves, of course, are a critical resource, and they are being lost because of cutting. Really, across Madagascar, forests are being cut because of the poverty issues and the need for clearing land, for example. This summit brought together, it was amazing. It was translated into 3 languages. Hundreds of folks were there. We were all packed in the same room. We talked about science, policy, tourism, use of the mangroves, local concerns. And there was a lot of passion, and there was some political challenges because of different entities that were represented. But what, in the end, a great sort of partnership came together, and there was a recognition that there needs to be better planning and use of mangroves, and that summit really led to that. More work has stemmed from that summit and the fisheries work. Chris Damon has worked on an excellent fisheries dashboard, as well as expanding that to talk about other coastal resources. And Emmy Uchida in economics at URI is leading an effort on natural capital valuation. And all of these efforts are cross-cutting, but they're a lot to do in their own right. So as you can probably imagine, there's been a lot that's happened, that's changed over the past year because of COVID. And I wanted to take a second and highlight a couple of ways in which we've pivoted. In Rhode Island, there's some extra funds came in Sea Grant to support helping the community. And in particular, we were working on helping growers pivot to new markets. There was a survey that was done also to better understand their needs, and this led to trainings on new skills for reporting, as well as technical skills like website development and so on. Also, the project has worked on promotion, commercials. There's aquaculture signage going in. Some of you may have been down to Galley and seen some of the work there to communicate about our aquaculture industry. CRC also helped with the Fishline app. Sea Grant, that was a major effort to kind of create Fishline. Well, it was an existing app that we tailored to Rhode Island and rolled it out for broad use. And additionally, we're working on other NSF efforts, such as the virtual Shop the Dot program. And ultimately, we want to grow in-person sales when we come out of COVID. So really a lot of important and exciting efforts. And I don't know that I'm going to show this whole video, but here's one of the commercials that's airing around the state that you may see when you're watching your favorite news program. But I in the interest of time, I won't keep going on that. So internationally, there's a number of ways we've been addressing COVID. In West Africa, we have a new over $1 million award looking at women, shellfish, and food security. This is really transdisciplinary research in that we're looking at how sustainable management for shellfish, can lead to increased mangrove conservation and ultimately improved human health, because with more shellfish, which provide a major source of iron and other trace nutrients, it can help reduce the issue of anemia in the world. And this is in partnership with Brietta Oaks and Arts and Sciences. And additionally, we're working on growing a virtual fisher-to-fisher dialogue in West Africa. In the Philippines, the project helped create something called the Fishing Tiange, which is an online marketplace to connect fishers to buyers. And in Ghana, there's been really impressive work on trying to impact behavior change to address the concern of COVID through different forms of communication. And also to use innovative technology, phone polling, to poll the community and understand their needs and the effectiveness of some of these communication tools. And just because I think it's really interesting, I want to quickly show or share a music video. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but this is a music video that was put together with one of the lead music stars in Ghana on coronavirus. And
we're not hearing the audio.
Oh, you're not getting the audio? Sorry. Thank you, Sarah. Well, I can share that after. I forgot to do something to get that audio to you. but I'll keep going in the interest of time because we're just about done. The other thing that we, of course, try and do is connect our work to the world. And of course, this day and age, there's lots of ways to do that. We've created a new website for CRC. We've expanded our Facebook followers by regular social and Twitter and Instagram. We had a student intern that helped with that, and we were sad to have her go, but we look forward to getting another student on board in that regard. We have a newsletter, and we have regular events and meetings. Probably one of the most successful in partnership with Sea Grant is the Baird Symposium, which is ongoing, focused on the offshore renewable energy this year. My job at CRC is really is multifold. I'm a listener. I'm learning. I'm an arbiter. I'm a diplomat. I'm a social media poster. I'm a fun maker for these online meetings, and I do a lot of email. But it's a really complicated job. It's a pleasure to do it. But I also wear another hat in that I'm a GSO faculty, and I am engaged in research, teaching, advising, and service. I do have a number of projects that I'm involved in, a couple NSF efforts and a couple of research efforts that are tied to some of the programs that I discussed earlier. One example project is I'm working with a colleague, with colleagues in the Philippines and at my former institution on mapping time series habitat mapping in the Philippines. And this is a product you can see here. These are mapped habitats using high resolution satellite data. And we are able to identify, for example, mangrove loss due to typhoons. And we've done a little bit of field work to help verify this, but this is sort of some work in progress. And the mangrove carbon is another aspect of it. Another project that I'm working on right now is actually funded by the URI fraternities and sororities. They provided a small grant to get some initial effort and communications on plastic, mapping it from shoreline to seafloor around Rhode Island, specifically Narragansett Bay. And many of us maybe don't think of plastic as being that big of a problem here in Rhode Island, but this is a picture that I took right near Providence. And so there are parts of our coast that are really incredibly impacted. And certainly everywhere we've gone so far over the course of this fall, we've found plastic hidden across the beach system, both macro, and we are looking at micro as well. So our contributions to URI are broad. We do try and have transdisciplinary research. We are working on globalization, contributing to research, education, and of course, we do provide overhead as well. I think the transdisciplinary research is important and something that we as a whole need to be thinking about moving forward. We also are growing partnerships internationally through these programs. One of the partnerships that's grown significantly is with the University of Cape Coast in Ghana, where they have been selected as a World Bank Africa Center of Excellence for Coastal Resilience. So we continue to work with them in our projects and with students that come here. Of course, we partner around GSO and URI. Shown here is a list of some names of folks that we're working with. And one of the, probably the best example of this partnering around URI is from the Ocean Sand, but there's so many other projects that I've hopefully mentioned and is clear to you. So in the final couple minutes, I'll just want to mention about the future of CRC. We are in a strategic planning process at CRC, and I really look forward to hearing the voices of CRC and others as we develop our plan over the next, really we're in the final stages the next month or so. But I have some thoughts that I'll share in a second. Our 50th anniversary is in 2021. Some areas of emphasis I think we have and others do are working on diversity, equity, inclusion. We're excited to be helping lead the Honors Colloquium, Sustaining Our Shores. I'm the lead on that. And of course, we want to grow our collaborations regionally and globally. I think I wanted to circle back to the reality of the coast and how it's changing. And shown here is a cartoon which kind of highlights some of the problems that we're faced with. Here you've got two white guys, a father and a son. Someday, son, this will all be yours, and underwater. And I think there's a couple things that this cartoon speaks to. One is, of course, the problem of climate change, but also that it's two white males in a suburban coast. We have a lot of issues related to racism, inequality, and justice. And of course, a lot of our problems are in urban areas. We have this growing blue economy where there's lots of opportunities, but moving forward, we need to be thinking about climate change and these socioeconomic disparities and how and potential ramifications for the blue economy. When we look around the world, 2% of the land area is what's called low elevation coastal zone, but this is where 11% of the world's population lives, and 60% of the population is in urban centers. So these are moving forward. Urban issues are going to be something that we need to be thinking about on our coasts. And finally, I wanted to say I think there's definitely areas for CRC's improvement. We want to grow connections to GSO and URI, diversify our funding, building related faculty and students and expertise, and then expanding our role at URI and internationally. So there's a lot of areas where we can improve, but I think hopefully I've highlighted that the coast is changing, that we're really working to bring science to societal issues around the world, and that our relationship to GSO and URI is strong, but needs to grow. And thank you all. I look forward to working with you all in the future. Sorry, I went a little long, but 1 minute left for conversation. Just kidding.
Nice job, JP. I really enjoyed that. And I'll turn it to Jen for questions.
Oh, Jen, you're muted. Oh, Jen's got audio issues. So let me.
Do you want me to do it? I
sure.
can.
Sure. That'd be...
Sure. So in the chat,
now?
You got it? Yep. I can hear you now, Jen.
Sorry, I was muted. Thanks, Kathy. No. Thank you, JP. That was wonderful. Paula, do you have any questions? Why don't you go first?
I have lots of questions, but I'll just ask one. So first of all, I just want to give you kudos. I think that the team is unbelievably talented, and I think you've done a yeoman's job bringing your leadership to them. I really enjoyed you talking about some of your historical achievements and science projects that really truly do link basic research with applications and really tailors that to the policies that are specific domestically and internationally. And you can really see the evolution in what CRC has accomplished over time. And I really appreciated you bringing that into the direction or directions in which you want CRC to go in the future. And honestly, I'm thrilled that you're thinking about another 3-year term as director. That being said, I think you highlighted some collaborations within GSO and internationally, but I wonder if you think there's an area or areas that you think are ripe for collaboration within GSO or partnerships that we can build within the state and internationally that you didn't have time to highlight, or that you think are really either near-term goals or long-range goals that you'd like to see GSO pursue?
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, great question. So let's see. I think there's a lot of opportunities. And to some degree, being a soft money center, we're usually responding to the opportunities put in front of us. But as an example, I think one of the best areas of opportunity is an effort that, in fact, Isaac Guinness is putting together right now is a nice example where we have tremendous expertise on modeling coastal systems for things like hazards. And Isaac, Reza, Stefan and Nekrilli in ocean engineering. There's an opportunity now to take that modeling effort and connect it to management. And so we're working with partners in the National Park Service, Amanda Babson, Monique LaFrance, and communities. We're working on a proposal, I should say, to address some of these management concerns. So I think this is where we have a really strong group of research that is clearly relevant to stakeholders. I think there's a great opportunity to grow, and that is an area where I'd say we've had success in the past, and there's more. I think there's other opportunities and need, for example, in understanding the ecosystem and how climate change is impacting it, and what that may do for fisheries and or aquaculture. And I know that there's great interest at GSO on that. Susanna, Tatiana, and others at CELS that are interested in some of the anthropogenic impacts like plastic, Colleen Suckling and Andy Davies. So those are just two examples, but I know there's more, and I think we need to I hope to hear more from you all on how we can grow as well.
Great. And again, we understand people may need to leave. It's 10:33, but we will continue until 11 o'clock. So if you need to leave, go for it. If you have a question, please either raise your hand or unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat. We'll do our best to find them.
And I know I raced through those last couple slides, so if there were anything that came up that I didn't kind of cover quickly, I just saw the time and I apologize.
It looks like there's a question in the chat now from
Yes, I was going to say, there's one from Susanna in the chat.
You obviously have a fantastic question. How can our graduate students, many in more fundamental research projects, become involved in CRC projects? So
Thanks.
There's a real desire for GSO students to participate in CRC.
Thanks, Susanna. I think probably the best way is for opening, that dialogue. And certainly I invite any students to come talk to me, and I can brainstorm on connecting and opportunities. As you know, many times to create that working together requires funding. And so we need to think about opportunities for that. But I want to highlight actually Victoria Fulfer, who your student, Susanna, who did just that, reached out. I know, and I thank you for recognizing the sort of the plastic work that I'm involved in as well as others. And we've talked a little bit about how we could work together. I'm planning to sort of help her as she moves through her program or research. And again, I think there's ways to grow, but of course there's a dialogue that's needed, and that's the first step. So I think we do need more opportunities to open up the communication. But there are ways. We just need to brainstorm together, I'd say, and co-design it. Really, at the end of the day, many times people want to just add in, and this isn't just for CRC, but I'll also highlight ISC, which is a wonderful entity. Scientists many times, they're thinking about the research, and that's critical. But in order for us to bring science to the world, that's a really complicated, difficult task, and we have experts that do that. And if you can bring people in, and on communication. So I've been working with Jason Jacks and others. If you want to do that, to make your science relevant and impact the world, bring us in as early as possible, and let us, and think about, there is funding, our time is valuable, just like yours is. So thinking about how to support that, how do we work together to find ways to support that? And we often leverage funding from different areas, but it's hard. This work is hard, getting science to the world. And it's been really eye-opening for me, as I was pretty much a scientist only in the past, and my eyes have been opened to the challenges and the incredible expertise of CRC and our partners. So think about that. Open up that dialogue early and think about costs associated with it, and respect people as equals. That's really important. We have to realize that we all have our expertise, and really trying to think of us as team members in your research. That really, to have successful research, making that it's not just writing the paper, it's then maybe even affecting people and or policy. Hopefully that makes sense.
I know that, as JP, you highlighted, through work, specifically Teresa Kareen, playing a leadership role in capstone projects with ocean engineering and other CELS programs and whatnot. We've really been able to engage students into our work. But as you said, or even presenting in classes, we are a soft money entity, so need a little bit of support there. JP, you're getting lots of accolades with the chat. Not sure if anyone has any other questions.
JP.
Uh-oh, there's a tough voice. This is a tough question coming in.
No, not at all. Congratulations to you and your group for the really great progress and accomplishments that you've made over the last 3 or 4 years. It's been exciting to see the new projects coming on board, the stability, the increased funding. It's really been a great effort. And so I just wanted to compliment you and the group for the hard work you've done.
Thanks so much, Bruce. I'm going to pass off all the thanks to the team because they do all the hard work. I just try and communicate it. But thank you, and for your support over the years.
A comment that Sarah Gaines made is that the dean had sent out an email about the UN Ocean Decade Opportunity, the Ocean Shot, and wondering if there are topics that we should highlight or do a little brainstorming on that. Has anyone thought of some topics that we could coordinate on?
Yeah, that's a great point, Jen. And one of the things I'll just mention is that, as you all know, the decade of ocean science for sustainable development kicks off in 2021. We're excited that we have the honors colloquium related to that in the fall. But this is where I think GSO and URI, of course, broadly has an opportunity to lead in coastal and ocean realms, because I think at URI we do such a good job of not only doing basic science but are connecting it. We can really serve as an example and share what we've learned, but also think about how we need to be better and how we can, for example, diversifying our community, bringing international expertise back to the U.S., for example. Often we think we know it all. I think we can learn from others and maybe in the process strengthen our community. Any ideas on ocean shots or other comments? No, people are speechless.
Just to jump in there. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. Hi, JP. Dee, thanks for sending me the link to this meeting today. That was great. And I just also wanted to thank you for always being so supportive of the Launch Lab Innovate at URI's efforts, being mentor in our recent virtual reality hackathon, and being willing to guide discussions in the blue-green idea stand-up. And that it means a lot. And at the Launch Lab, we're always looking for real world problem statements. Sometimes students want to come and work on ideas, and to have that input from the real world is really great for them. And thanks also to Jen for connecting into the Launch Lab so well. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Dee Dee. And I know sometimes over on the Bay campus, we our connections to main campus are not always it's hard for us. We're busy in our world or just removed, but the work that you're doing, connecting to students and really kind of thinking about how we can connect them to real issues and create solutions. I really enjoyed being a part of the hackathon recently, the virtual one, and I think there's so many more ways we should reach out to those, especially those motivated students that are really looking to change the world.
Yeah, they are. And they need help sometimes, like getting going on an idea that they feel like really has impact. And so that's kind of the work that you're doing for sure. Thanks you.
Thanks, Dee Dee. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Paula, did you have another question?
No, I didn't have a question. I just was going to comment that in response to the email I put out to the GSO faculty, students, staff, and MRSs, there's been a lot of response of people brainstorming ideas and thinking about ideas, and as well as a number of people who are developing ocean shots. And I just want to make sure that we not only are aware of each other within GSO, but certainly across the university where there's true collaboration within ourselves or engineering or other partners. And that's really important that we stay coordinated, because I think that strengthens our case. And we've also talked about, this morning I had an exchange about putting in URI and GSO as a nexus partner, which a lot of other institutions dedicated to the ocean have done. So there are a couple things we can talk about, but agree we're on a really short timeline with December 1st and Thanksgiving being next week. So I'm happy to work with JP and others on this call to spearhead that for GSO or URI in general.
So if they're interested, should they reach out to you, Paula?
Yes, absolutely. I think we can try and coordinate this together on a short timeline. I think that would be great. And thank you to everybody who has already done that. But let's make sure, like Dee Dee said, that we're coordinating.
Right. Great. Good. And any other questions? I'm looking, I don't see any.
All right.
I can ask one more if that's okay.
Please.
I'll get JP afterwards too. First, let me say, JP, it would be really great if you're okay with it that we post your presentation somewhere that's accessible to people. I think there are probably a number of folks that couldn't make it, and then others who I think, like me, that would be really interested in sort of staring at your slides for a while and thinking about our future collectively. I wonder sometimes, I get very reflective when a term of some service comes up like this, and it truly is a term of service, I think, as well as leadership. Do you think there's an opportunity that CRC or you missed relative to your role that you regret, or how would that drive maybe choices you make as a group moving forward?
Ooh.
I always look back and think, oh God, after 3 years of doing this, I wish I had done X, or maybe I would have, or maybe if we had the resources for Y, we would have done this differently,
Well, yeah, I think one area that I didn't really get into much, but I think is important, is that we could do better on reaching the world and communicating what we do, and CRC, I think in the past was a little more kind of like hermits. We kind of held and wanted to keep our heads down and have our chance to do our work and not be bothered. But I think there's a need and a desire to connect and to communicate what we're doing, and we need to do that better. We've tried. We don't quite have the funding to kind of support a full-time position. I do want to thank Peter Hanlon, who's come on board and really been a great, and his team, Mike Sherman and others that have done a really nice job at communicating GSO efforts and including us in that process. But there's, I think, more that we can do and need to do. If you look at what some of the other entities do out there as far as getting information, stories into the newspaper, getting articles written in popular magazines. I mean, things that are going to see more eyeballs and are going to communicate the challenges and the science better, more. And really, if we could invest a little bit more in that area, it would have huge impacts. I think we've done a lot with very little, but and I appreciate and in fact, actually working on the self-study for GSO, it was really nice to sort of see the breadth of non-URI or sort of external engagement that Peter's group and ISC and us are engaged in. But there's so much more we can do and should be doing, and URI can really, if we highlight it better, I think we'll become much more known internationally and nationally and regionally.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. I mean, I agree, and I don't think it just rests on CRC or your shoulders, right? I think the idea of a more coordinated strategy in oceans or just aquatic environments across the university, you know, actually bringing together, like all the pieces are there, but they're not quite meshed and moving yet. And I feel like just having, I agree that Peter and your institution, the Interspace Center, many aspects of what we do at GSO and across URI in partnership with CELS and other colleges work very well, but meshing that into an overall outreach strategy or public engagement strategy, I think is going to be really important. And I'm excited to see that develop. And others may have some comments on that, but thank you for raising that. I think that's a really important point. And it's not as simple as hiring a social media coordinator, you know?
Right. There's a lot more, and we need people to contribute to that effort. That takes time and value it. Another point I wanted to make, somewhat related to that, is I think URI generally needs to do better in highlighting its coastal prowess. GSO is a wonderful entity, and obviously there's great strength around URI on ocean and different aspects, but in coastal we have such a tremendous amount of work being done, everything from basic research on very incredible modeling, and then sort of social science that's really understanding the problems of our coast, and then working with students. And I think there's so much more that if we could recognize this sort of holistic strength that we have and communicate it, I think we could attract more students. We can attract more funding by doing that, by realizing we're not just doing, science, but we're doing something with that science. That's so important. And I really think we could do better in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true. We find that many people don't understand what we're doing and how we are contributing. JP, how do you, so given that you are both, you're teaching, you're the director of CRC, and you're doing research, what is that fair, one, and how are you able to do this? And how can CRC and GSO help you to accomplish all of those goals successfully?
Great question. It's certainly fair because I signed up for it, and but it is hard, and I wanted to include that slide on highlighting how it's hard. And I sometimes feel like not doing as well as I could in some of these areas. I dropped the ball on different initiatives, of course, because I'm juggling maybe too many things. But I think what can help me is actually having more people to work with directly. Many of the CRC staff are focused on their projects, and I, slowly I'm really happy to have like my first GSO graduate student who's working on the plastic initiative, and that's in partnership. He's the survey, the Rhode Island Beach Survey student. I think we could probably, use another staff for again, getting back to something like communications, where, I find I'm, part of this is me. I'm reading things and I want to get it out there to the world. So I'm writing social media posts at, 2 a.m. sometimes because my brain is going and I want some people to see it. But, I think, I don't know. And there is a bit of a difficult thing for me in the sense that I don't want to leave research, so I really don't want to only be an administrator. I like having that. I like being connected to the projects. I like working with Jen on the multi-use project, and I like working with Fishright on habitat mapping. So, to some degree, I'm going to be pulled in lots of directions, but I think through maybe adding some more support, I could be a little bit, I can be better and we can do more. And someone like Jennifer's Critcher, who's fabulous and keeps me on task and getting things done, but we're a little overwhelmed because of the breadth of our portfolio and just the number of, there's so many logistical problems with contract issues and so on that we're tasked with all the time. We're interacting with URI lawyers all the time because of some of these international issues and in developing countries or questions on unique partnerships. So those things take time, and we don't have a huge, we've got a great, incredible staff, but there's only so much time. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I answered your question well enough, but we probably need more help. Put it that way.
Yeah.
We could do more.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. And again, especially when you're talking about bringing in GSO graduate students, at one point we had a student coordinator, for example, and Bob Bowen just reminded me that we had a Brian Needham who was a sort of a assistant to help support the director so that things wouldn't slip through the cracks. Not to say they are, but so that you don't have to work every night till 2 a.m, for example.
Yeah. I think another thing that would really add is having some students. We do have some great partnerships with CELS through MESM students, and it would be wonderful if either through Sea Grant or through other avenues we could grow some direct students. And we used to have some students that were continually working with GSO and sort of thinking about how you take that science and apply it, and really getting students to work directly with CRC staff. And again, we got a lot of people on our team that have great expertise and insight. So, yeah. I would also add that many people don't, what's been amazing since I've got here is to realize the community, how broad it is. And I'm just looking at some of the names. It's overwhelming in Rhode Island how much there is. Jen McCann is incredibly connected, and I've just been learning from her. But, we've got National Park Service right here. I see Amanda Babson's name. We have EPA and NOAA literally on our campus. Our connections are not that strong there. They need to be strengthened. We have worked a lot with CRMC, but growing our private and government and our, federal and state relationships on so many levels, there's a lot of opportunity. In part because we are the ocean state and we're small. But that's why we've been successful and why we can, I think, succeed more than other places. Woods Hole or Scripps, they're islands in themselves almost. We're kind of connected in this small state. It takes 30 minutes to get to Providence and pretty much anywhere in Rhode Island. So we can do a lot here, and we have great international connections. And I love hearing the stories. Everywhere I go, I feel like I meet an alumni of GSO or CRC or CELS, and we should use our alumni network more and highlight them. My wife used to work for an alumni association at a former institution, and we can really benefit by tapping into our alums, like Paula. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Any last minute questions? I know JP said we were going to go until 11, but we don't have to. Are there any questions? Do people feel like they now understand a little bit more about CRC? Or if you want to know more, where you go and what our vision is? Do we need any more clarification on that? Or just call JP. He's up all night, all day. He will respond to you anytime.
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah, and JP, thank you so much for the time and for staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning for anything related to your job in GSO. And thank you to the CRC staff for being such tremendous parts of the GSO community for so long, especially since you're about to celebrate your 50th anniversary. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming to and for hanging in there until the end. I certainly learned a lot today, and I look forward to a broader dialogue for CRC, GSO, and all of our partners across main campus moving forward.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay
Take
safe.
care.
Thanks,
Bye.
JP.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, JP.